You're listening to the Selfdoubt podcast, where we empower women of faith to identify, acknowledge, and accept their doubts and limits and beliefs in order to give birth to their God-given purpose. Join me and sometimes some of my friends on our journey as we remind you that you are not alone. I'm Felicia Wallace, and together we will find our fears and slay them. Welcome back to another episode of the Selfdoubt podcast. I am here with Ramesha Nicole from the Ramesha Nicole Show, formerly known as Real Talk with Ramesha Nicole. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did. Formerly known as Real Talk with Ramesha Nicole podcast.
Okay.
Hey, Felicia.
Hey, girl. Hey. So first of all, let me just tell y'all, we had a whole session an hour before this. Okay. Just getting it all out. Like, it is so refreshing to be able to have connection with people that, like, it's intentional and it's purposeful, and God has really aligned relationships to be together. So I know in the previous episodes I have mentioned how important connectivity is. So I just want to thank you, first of all, for just being a part of my community and my village, because I already feel like since the first time we talked, I was just like, yep, me and her, we about to be, yeah, this about to be it.
That's it. Yeah. Likewise, Felicia, thank you for, just the wisdom, the knowledge, the insight that you have shared with me. The feeling is mutual. And like you said, it's all about purposeful relationship, purposeful community. So I just thank God for it at the end of the day, because listen, we be out here struggling on the struggle bus, all on a lonely island, when God has already given you community that can hold you down.
Yeah, so this is going to be a great episode, y'all, because we've been trying to do this for months, and the Lord just kept telling us, pause. Not today. We're going to do it another day. And we've gone back and forth and had conversation in between. So even today, I was like, we're not playing today. Today, we going to get this done today. Okay, y'all? So, Ramesha, please tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started.
Well, hello, Slaying Self-Doubt community. My name is Ramesha Nicole, and I am the internal debt collector. And I know you're probably like, an internal debt collector. So my journey to debt freedom really started 26 hours before I was scheduled to go on an 11-month mission trip journey called the World Race. When the Lord was like, hold on, sweet girl. No, stop running and deal with your debt. And I was like, Lord, hold on now. 26 hours. I have raised all this money. I have raised the support fund. Lord, this is $10,000 to $12,000 worth of support. You mean don't go? And I'm sure you all probably could imagine, the number of emotions that I felt at that time, from embarrassment to shame. But he was like, stop running, and it's time to deal with your debt. And what I thought was going to be a journey of just getting myself out of financial debt really opened my eyes. Like, God literally began to take me through a journey of what's called internal transformation, and began to really free me and rid me of those internal debts that were not only affecting my finances, but infecting them. And he's still taking me on that journey. I don't think that we arrive at any point. We are continually to be evolved and be transformed. And so he is continuing to transform me from the inside out. And that is how I got started on this journey of, being the internal debt collector, being a financial therapist, financial coach, internal debt coach, so that I could really shift the perspective on what it really means to get out of debt. So that's really just the essence of the beginning of my journey into the work that I've been doing.
Oh, nice. So I know everybody probably wondering, well, what you do when he told you not to go on the trip?
So let me tell y'all something. So first and foremost, I sat on the edge of the bed. So let me paint a picture for you, okay? So at the time, again, it was 26 hours. My bags are packed. At the time I was living, I'm from Texas, as you guys can probably hear it. Hey, y'all. Yep, we say y'all. Everything is big in Texas. So at the time I was living with my sister and my brother-in-law, and they live out in a rural area, y'all, like acres of land. And I sat on the edge of my bed. I had some debt that I was still trying to figure out what I was going to do with it, because I didn't want to leave that on my family. I was the one who had gotten myself upside down on a car loan. I was the one who had gotten myself in this credit card debt. So at the time, I was like, Lord, I know that you've called me to this journey, but Lord, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
And I truly believe that God is a supernatural God. I believe in supernatural debt cancellation. I believe in miracle signs and wonders. But I think that would have been the easy way out. I think
Yeah.
that was the
Yeah.
cop out for me to pray and ask
Pray
God
it
to
away.
give
Because
it, to
don't
pray it
we do?
away,
Mm-hmm.
like people do with anxiety,
Yes.
right? Try
Mm-hmm.
to pray it away.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. That's a message for me, y'all. Okay.
That's the message for the both of us, y'all, which was the whole conversation we had about 2 weeks ago. And I was just like, okay, Lord, what am I supposed to do with this? And so my coach at the time for the mission trip was like, hey, sweet girl, I really think that you should sit with the Lord and ask him what you should do.
Mm.
I said, okay, Mama D, I will do that. And she said, okay, let me know what you come up with. So I sat on the edge of the bed, opened up the blind, y'all. The wind was blowing. I mean, I'm literally painting this picture for you. He was sending the sign. He was just talking to me through the wind. Because it says that he wasn't in the earthquake, he wasn't in the wind, but it was
Yeah.
a still small voice. So I prayed. And I said, Lord, I know that you've called me to this. What do you want me to do? And he said, stop running. I said, now, Lord, I know that's not you. Lord, that is not you. So I sat up on the bed, the edge. I said, okay, Lord, I believe that you are El Shaddai, Lord. I believe that you are Jehovah Jireh, the Lord, my provider. And I sat there and he said, stop running.
Mm.
I said, now, Lord, I started to, try, because I don't know if you've ever done this. I tried to bargain. Let me
Yeah.
tell y'all something.
Listen.
Disclaimer.
You can't
You
bargain with
cannot
Jesus.
bargain with the Lord because he
Not.
said what he said and he meant what he said. He is not a man that he shall lie. And he was not playing with me in that moment.
Listen.
So I caught myself praying again. Third time, 3 times is a charm. Father, you're going to change your mind. And I said, Lord, I know that you have called me to this, Lord. I know you can cancel this debt, Jesus. What am I supposed to do? So I started to get a little desperate. And he said, Ramesha, stop running and deal with your debt. And when I tell you, my body went completely numb. There was like a warm
Mm.
sensation that went over my body. Tears began to flow. I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I felt guilty because, again, I had friends, family, strangers, people who I hadn't even met, who were rallying around me, and we had raised $10,000 to $12,000 of the required 17,000 that I needed to go
Mm.
because it was based off of sponsorships and support.
Yeah.
It was a support fund. And so here I was. My sister and brother-in-law had bought tickets to see me off to lunch with my niece and nephew in Atlanta. So they ended up taking a family vacation and making the best of it for the kids, which the kids, my niece and nephew, were excited that Nanny wasn't leaving, right? So that
Right.
was the benefit for the kids.
Right.
But what I did, I called my coach back, talked with Mama D, and she said, I really believe that the Lord is going to bless your obedience.
Mm. Mm.
And at the time, I really didn't want to hear it, but I knew, she said discipline doesn't seem easy at the time, right? We think that,
Yeah.
God is this super genie. No, God is your father. And when your father disciplines you and he tells you to sit down, you
Yeah.
better sit down. So I
Yeah.
sat down. I took Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University, learned, what I needed to do to be gazelle intense and learning the strategies that I needed to really begin to get myself out of that financial debt. And in between that time, I had a good girlfriend we were both counselors here in one of the larger districts in the Houston area. And she reached out to me, was like, hey, I'm abroad, I'm in Qatar. We are looking for an elementary school counselor. And she said, I think that you would be a great asset because you are elementary. That is your forte. We need someone like you. Plus, it'll be a great way. I know that you're looking to pay off your debt. Okay, cool. I applied, you know, had heard this sermon about someone being in your position, but God will move a person out of the way. I really
Mm.
believe that that was the prophecy for me because someone literally was in that position. But our head of schools was like, yeah, I'm gonna try to finagle some things. We really want you. And lo and behold, I landed the job.
Wow.
But I remember when I got the email, I was sitting in church, still kind of numb at the fact that God, really, like, you made me sit down. Like, God, this is
Yeah.
not like you. I know that you called me to this, right? And I heard him say, check your phone. And so I pulled my phone out of my purse. I was sitting up high in the balcony at church, and I I heard the voice of the Lord say so clearly to me, I didn't let you go abroad before because I had tried.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
But when you try to step ahead of God, he'll be
Hmm.
like, oh,
Hmm.
okay,
Hmm.
you want
Hmm.
to do this? Go right ahead.
Yeah.
So I heard him clearly say, I didn't let you go because you wouldn't have known how to manage your money.
Mm. That's
I'm gonna let that sit for a while because oftentimes we pray for things that we want, but what if you're not ready for the
come
thing it
on.
is that you're praying for?
Yes.
Hence, I'm speaking to myself right now. I've been praying for the Lord to send me my Boaz, but Ramesha, are you really ready for your Boaz right now? Think
Yeah.
about all the stuff internally that you have going on. Are you really ready for God to send the help me? No, because you wouldn't know how to handle it, right?
Wow.
So he said that to me, and I landed the job. So prepare to go. I am on, in the little tunnel as you're going from inside of the airport onto the plane, right? So you
Mhm.
have that little stretch of, the little alleyway they have.
Yeah.
And I remember that it was the day that my great grandfather had passed away about 6 or 7 years before that. The same day I left to go to
Mm.
Qatar was the same day that my great grandfather had passed away. And I declared it out of my mouth. I said, this is going to be a season of life and death.
Mm.
Life to new experiences, life to new habits, mindsets, and behaviors, but death to life that I've known it, death to
Yeah.
old behaviors, old mindsets. And when I tell you that God began to take me on a journey, He
Mm.
began to take me on a journey. He began to really show me that the reason why I was in so much debt was tied and connected to a childhood traumatic event that had happened over 29 years before
Mm.
that. He began to show me how my limited perspective, my limited thinking, how I saw
Mm.
myself,
Yeah.
how I saw money. Like, money is not your enemy. Money, is not the root of all evil. Your love for money is the root of all evil, which we take biblical principles out of context, right?
Right.
He began to really transform me. I mean, helping me to forgive people who had offended me as early as grade school, fifth grade.
Mm.
Even now that I'm back, he's still taking me through that journey of forgiveness because I once heard that we think that, and let me give y'all the disclaimer, I did pay off the $10,000 worth of credit card debt right at 10 months of me being there. So the $10,000 was paid off.
Yes. Come
Before
on.
I left, which was 18 hours, I want to say before I left, I paid off the car loan that I was upside down on. So before leaving to Qatar, I paid off debt. Before I came back from Qatar, I paid off debt. But one of the things that, God really was showing me was that when we say forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors, that true debt freedom starts with unforgiveness, starts with
Mm.
forgiveness, because we hold on to
Mm.
unforgiveness, and
Mm.
that is why you are in debt. That is the number one culprit of why so many people are in debt.
Girl, you just preached a whole word. Okay. Like it's so many different things that you said that I'm just like, oh, Felicia, you got to stay on task. Okay. Because I'm like, this about to be a whole nother, like, it's a lot. But I like to hear your story and just like, I can see you. They can't like when you are able to like I know that when you're telling your story and like you close your eyes because you can feel the feels, right? And like as you were telling it, like I can imagine like all of those feelings and all of those emotions that you went through. And when you said that, sometimes a God thing, he will stop you because he has to give you you're not ready for it, right? And you hear all the time, like if you can't handle $1,000, why you think God gonna bless you with $100,000, right?
Mhm.
And even when we think about entrepreneurship or like start entrepreneurship or even in like leveling up in your career path, if you can't handle what you already have, or it's not going you're not going to be doing any better even if you get promoted or how I was trying to think about the entrepreneurship thing or how about your personal life will be represented in your business life, right? So if that's out of order, then if your finances are out of order in your personal life, they're going to be out of order in your business life as well. And so I think it's so important because finances is like a conversation, especially a lot of times in our community is very taboo. Nobody want to talk about about it. It's almost like that and health care, right? Money, you don't talk about nobody money, and you don't talk about
Right.
how you feeling and what ailments you got and all that other stuff. And you find out, for a lot of us, especially in our generation, you find out as an adult, like, oh, so we actually had these things. And if we had done these differently, this is the way it would have looked. And so I definitely commend you for your obedience, right? Because a lot of times we get stuck there because you could have chosen to be like, nah, I already got this trip planned, Lord. I'm gonna just go. I'll deal with my debt when I get back, which is a lot of times what ends up messing us up, right? Because we be trying to, like you say, you can't bargain with him, right? And
Right.
if you do it anyway, he will hem you up something terrible, and you be like, I wish I never even went in the first place. Well, he tried to get you not to go, but you over here still trying to figure it out and do it yourself, right? So it speaks to obedience because that one thing created all the subsequent things that happened after that, right? Like you didn't know you didn't know that who you are today started right at that moment, and how you were going to be able to use your testimony to be able to bless others. You did not realize that because when something happens to us, we are focused only on us. It's only after the fact can we look back and be like, oh, that's why that happened. I see exactly what you're talking about, Lord. So as you've gone through this journey, and from that moment, how has self-doubt showed up in your journey?
Oh, self-doubt is still there.
Well, you know what, you're right. So even when we talked in the beginning, you said it's just like it's that your journey is going to always be something. Yes, self-doubt is definitely it, it's a journey, and as you continue to level up and you do different things and you go into new seasons, it will still be there. So I definitely agree with that. But how has self-doubt showed up in your journey specifically, and if wherever it still is?
Well, one of the way that it continues to show up is I overanalyze. And we talked about this. You
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
overanalyze the smallest of the littlest details when God has already given you one instruction. Then you begin to be like, oh, well, Lord, nobody's going to buy that. Lord, what if they don't listen? Well, Lord,
mm,
what if? And you begin to question, kind of like how you and I were having the conversation prior
mm-hmm,
to with the Israelites. If they would not have overanalyzed, they would have gotten to their promised land a little faster,
mm-hmm,
right? That
mm-hmm.
was holding them up. So for me, it kind of also ties to how I see myself.
Mm. Let's talk about that.
Do I see? And so, as I mentioned to you, I was in an intense therapy program.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the things that, and let me give this disclaimer, you can have Jesus and a
Oh,
therapist.
they know. They know. I'm a proponent for therapy, as always.
Hello? Both Jesus and a therapist.
Yes, you need them both. Okay, in real
Right.
life.
In real life, you need both Jesus and a therapist. And so, in the intense therapy program, one of the things that I learned or that I realized was that my self worth
Mm,
was tied to too many different things.
mm,
How I saw myself, how I think what I'm worthy of, right? Because when you don't think you're worthy, that's when you begin to over rationalize. That's when you
mm.
begin to over analyze, or you don't think that you're good enough for anything better to come. So you begin to settle,
Yes.
right?
It-
So self doubt for me, and it still shows up in that, right? As I'm really learning to redefine who I am for myself, not what society says, not what my family says,
Yeah.
that people pleasing.
Mm-hmm.
Self doubt is showing up in that people pleasing, in lack of boundaries. So it's shown up in those areas. And now I'm able to identify it,
Mm-hmm.
not as much as I would like, but of course, we're still evolving and still
Right.
growing. But I'm able to see that, okay, you're doubting yourself. It's
Mm.
because you don't really truly believe that you are worthy of this opportunity,
Yeah.
or you don't really believe that you have what it takes to actually go into entrepreneurship full
Mm-hmm.
time and to walk away from the comfort of a job, right?
Yeah.
Preaching to myself.
Yes. And to me. Yes. Yes. Yes.
So it's shown up in those ways. Those are just the ways that that have come to my mind at this moment as to how it showed up and how it continues to show up.
Yeah. No, I think that's really good because for me, I've been on this journey way longer than everybody else because God gave it to me first. So I'm like I I started this journey before y'all even knew about it. So for me, I'm like, oh, I know how that works. I know what that is. And sometimes it's not as easy a lot of times to put a name on it, right? And so it's really about that you're taking the necessary steps to your self-awareness to be able to say, okay, what is it about me? Because I tell all my clients, I tell everybody that I work with, it is not about anybody else. Every single thing that we are struggling with right now is about yourself, right? Even if there's other people connected to it, like if someone else is the reason for it, and it was the cause of it, the response that you're like how you're showing up for yourself and how you're showing up for in the world is your responsibility, right? And so it is your responsibility to be in tune with yourself to say when this new opportunity shows up, or if I want to get this new job or a relationship, or I get an opportunity to work with somebody for an astronomical amount of money that you like, oh my god, I can't believe it. Like, how do I take that and say, okay, pause, what am I not going to do? What habits am I not going to bring back? And what am I going to do differently? But I think that comes from work, and it comes from just really being aware of what your triggers are, what the things are that you are very clear about, and you do that with the help of definitely for me, a therapist, or some people. They have a stigma about therapy or a coach in whatever, if it's like more specific, but you have to do that work. Like even working with a therapist and a coach, it's still your work.
Hmm.
They're just facilitating that space and creating and giving you that space to be able to speak it. But you have to show up and you have to be willing to do the work. So I definitely commend you for doing the work because it's not easy work, because it challenges you to be different. It challenges you to show up different. It challenges you to see the people that we have been so used to looking at them as the reason for why we are the way we are. Like, if you hadn't have done this, then I wouldn't be like, no, that's you have a choice. We all have
Hmm.
choices, right? And so when you know that and you're actively making a difference for yourself, it benefits you, it benefits your family, your generations after you, it benefits the kingdom, because we all are meant here to help each other, right?
Yeah.
So that yeah, that's some good stuff right there. So what have you learned about yourself during this journey that you didn't know before?
That I have a tendency to run when things get difficult and when things
Oh,
get hard.
listen, that's good.
And when they say do the work, like you gotta face yourself.
Hmm.
You have to face yourself. You have to literally, like my great aunt has this saying, and one day she and I were having a conversation, and she would say, Mimi, because that's what my family calls me on my mom's side of the family. Mimi, you have to turn yourself inside out. You have to
Mm,
look at yourself from the inside out and really see, what's preventing you or what's causing you. We were talking about relationships, but
mm,
what's causing you not to be fruitful in relationships or have, or in certain areas of your life. You have to turn yourself inside out and
yeah.
examine yourself in those areas. So, doing the work, and I never thought that I would have enrolled myself in an intense therapy program, which required me to take off from work, right? But
Right.
sometimes you have to get outside of the box. Sometimes you have to do something that you've never done so that you can get results that you've never gotten.
Yeah.
Insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results.
Yeah.
And I've learned, I can't keep running. I've learned that at the end of the day, the healing that is due to me is
Mm,
my responsibility to go
mm,
and get it. That I cannot keep putting my things, my internal debts on other people who had nothing to do with it. And
yeah.
I
Yeah.
actually had a friend say that to me. He said, Ramesha, you're putting onto me what someone else has done to you, and it's not my
Mhm.
fault.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it
Yep.
causes you to face yourself,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. You're absolutely right. And I think that um, one of the things that is any type of transformational work that you do, any type of self-reflecting requires you to do the work for yourself regardless of what other people think, because you is your job to show up in the world differently, if that's what you truly want. I love Dave Ramsey too. And so he has a saying that like live like no one else so you can live like no one else, right? And
Mhm.
that is doing the uncomfortable thing. That is doing the thing that you don't want to do, the thing that makes you feel like like, we talked about it offline that like I'm in a season of uncomfortability, not because of anything negative happening, but because I really want what God has for me. And in order for me to get what he has for me, I have to do what he's called me to do. And that makes me uncomfortable because I don't know what the end is going to be. But that's where trust comes in, right? That's where faith
Mhm.
comes in. And that's where we really you have to know, do you trust him? I know on another episode I was saying that I was struggling with why I didn't want to move previously. And it was, I had to say out loud that I didn't trust that God was going to actually give me what he promised me. Right. And I had
Mm.
to be honest, one, not only with myself. I mean, he already knew it, but whatever. So I had to tell him, I had to tell me, and then I had to tell the people that God has connected me to, because there's other people that are out here who are trying to do this, but they really don't trust that if they do the work, it's really going to be fruitful, or God is really going to give them what they want in a time frame that they feel like is comfortable. And the reality is that he absolutely will. And it will not, it may not always show up the way you want it to look, but God is, he's faithful, and he will always deliver on his promises, period. Like,
Mhm.
but you have to be obedient. You have to do, you can't not do it. Faith without works is dead. So you can believe all day long, but if you don't move, he gonna be
Yeah.
like, I'm waiting on you, sis.
Yeah.
I'm waiting
Yeah.
on you.
And it's not when we feel like it, because your feelings are liars. And we
Mm,
talked about that.
yes.
And it's funny you say that, because this week I kept saying, oh, I just don't feel like doing nothing. I don't feel like doing anything. But there comes a time in a season of rest too.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Because that's one of the things that my psychiatrist and I were talking about. He said, you are an overachiever.
Mhm.
He said, I know it. But that overachievement is an internal debt, because somehow, somewhere you felt that you weren't good enough. So you felt like you had to overachieve, right?
Yeah,
Which is
yeah,
exactly
yeah,
what
yeah.
that
Mhm.
perfect patty, that perfectionist, that's what we talk about in my 7-week coaching intensive. Is you all of that stuff that we were taught growing up to strive for perfection. Let me tell you something, there is no such thing as perfect.
Mhm.
And
Mm.
that's going to cause you to find yourself laid out with in a panic attack or in somebody's hospital.
Listen, so I know this is like so random. If no one's watched it, like people know. Oh, well, I've shared on here plenty of times that reality TV is my guilty pleasure, right? So I'm into all the housewives, right? So recently they have a newer housewife series, which is the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City in Utah, right? Like so random, but I watched the commercials and was like, oh no, this is gonna be good, right? And so one of the first episodes is like this girl. So it's based around the fact that, which I had no idea, that Utah is like the largest Mormon community ever, like in the United States, I guess. And so it's based off of the fact that like a lot of the Mormon beliefs is about perfection, right? And so as I'm watching this, the lady like I think she was like, it's so many different rules to, so if I'm Googling it, I know that I am, but there's so many different rules to like, is it Mormonism? I don't know.
Child, don't
I don't know
ask
the
me. I
word. Let
just
me
know
like,
they Mormons.
yeah, okay. To the Mormon lifestyle, right? That like, there's certain things that just are like you are completely banished from the faith if you do these things. So the girl ended up like getting divorced or something. And so because she got divorced, she's like, she's not Mormon anymore. So I'm like, well, isn't it just a belief system? Like, I don't, I, it just, it wasn't resonating with me. But anyway, so she in her talking about it, she was saying like, a part of Mormonism is that everything is supposed to be perfect. You're supposed to be perfect. Your marriage, your kids, your job, your everything. So she, which is funny, she has a multi-billion-dollar business where they do cosmetic surgery basically. So like Botox and all the things, like I'm talking about, there was people in there getting Botox in their underarms so they wouldn't sweat. Like, and these aren't people who are doing them for health reasons. They're literally doing it so they have the perfect face, the perfect this, like, and it's and it was so hard in watching one of the episodes when one of her friends who's not Mormon, she was saying, like, the lady was this lady who has this business is still so distraught because she's no longer married. And so
Mm-hmm.
then she's like, well, if I'm not married, I'm not Mormon. And so the girl is like, what are you talking about? Like, would you have just stayed in the marriage unhappy and just so you can stay Mormon? And she's like, yeah. And then she had to ask her, like, what are you teaching your children? What are you teaching
Mm,
your three daughters, that they should just be unhappy in a marriage with somebody that they do not love? And mind you, she admitted she don't think she's ever been in love. She just married this Mormon dude and they had a family because that's what you're supposed to do. And so as I'm
wow.
watching it unfold, I just was like, that's not living, right? Like, there's people out here who truly live, and at the end of the day, for me, it has nothing to do with Mormonism. Like, I don't, whatever your belief is, your faith, that's your business. But to me, it just really, it challenged me to be able to say that, like, there's people out here who truly believe in that perfectionism, and that if they are not, but the reality is that what's perfect, right? So in another scenario, I'm talking to my son, and he wants to do something different with his hair. And so I say it's hair. Yeah, I cut off my dreads, right? So it's hair. It'll grow back
It's
if he
hair.
wants
It'll
to,
grow back.
right?
That's my mantra.
So he wants to do something with it. And I'm like, okay, well, if you want, that's fine. And so somewhere in his conversation, he's like, well, I'm weird. And so I was like, you're not weird. And don't say that. And he was like, well, you're weird. And I was just like, it kind of threw me off. I'm like, okay. He was like, we're all weird. And I was just like, I mean, I guess. He was like, what's normal? And
Mm,
then so I paused and I said, you're right. We all are weird. Cause I couldn't, how do you define what normal is? Right. And so it
right.
just really, like, normal perfection, like those type of things. Like, what are you striving to be? And it should just be individuals, like, in better versions of who God called us to be, like who we
Yeah.
are and who it is that he wants, like whatever your purpose is, whatever who you are on the inside, that is just being the best version of you, which is going to be different from you. It's going to be different from my son. It's going to be different from the lady on the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Like,
Right.
we're all going to be individuals because that's how we were created. No matter what your belief system is, no matter what job you have, how much money you have, all of those things, our jobs are to be who we are at our fullest, most authentic, transparent, honest self, right? And
Yeah.
so a part of this work and this journey of even you saying, realizing that you have this perfectionism, or realizing that you run away from things, that's you showing up as you,
Yeah.
and having that awareness, knows that if it happens again, you're gonna be like, okay, Ramesha, you're trying to run away from the same way I told you part of my procrastination is busyness. Felicia, don't you add another thing to your calendar.
Right.
Sit down.
Right. Because you don't need to add not another thing.
Not another thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you talked about it a little bit. So what is it that we like? What is it that you do to help other women, or other people, have that same type of transformation? Like, you are the internal debt collector. What is that?
Well, basically, as the internal debt collector, what I really do is help you get to the root and pull up those roots. So think about a debt collector. A debt collector calls you and say you have an outstanding balance. What is
Mhm.
keeping you bound? Right?
Mm,
What is keeping you in bondage? So
come
what we
on.
do is we take a look at all of those things, and I talk about bondage from a biblical standpoint because debt is bondage. Anything
Hmm.
that is keeping you bound, that is keeping you from actually walking in the fullness and the freedom of who you are, is bondage,
Come on
from
now.
your thoughts to your weight to your health to your emotions to your spiritual debt. I mean, anything, your finances, anything that is keeping you down. And so, what I do is I really help us to get down to the core root as to why we found ourselves in so much debt. It really
Mm,
is all about you facing yourself.
yeah.
And so we go through different pillars, right? There are 4 phases of internal transformation that I talk about in my course, right? Which is called Beyond the Budget, How to Pay Your Debt Off for Real this time. Like, you're going to go through these 4 phases and you're going to identify past lessons. What were you taught or exposed to in your childhood? What were things that you heard in your childhood? What were behaviors and mindsets that you developed, right?
Mm.
Getting to the core of you. Who are you at your core? Are you divine? Are you defined by the degrees? Are
Mm.
you defined by the labels? Are you defined by the neighborhood that you live in? And let me just say that there is nothing wrong with wanting to have a certain lifestyle, but if that lifestyle defines who you are, then you
Yeah.
don't know who you are at your
Correct.
core.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we go through those 4 phases in the course. And then the 7 week intensive is where we really get down to the nitty gritty. Okay, you know how to pay off your debt. I've given you the tools. We've taken a look. We've set goals, right? We've gotten to the core as to why you found yourself in debt. Now let's go and really tap into that unhealed trauma that you've experienced,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like you said, getting out of the box and doing something different,
Mm.
actually identifying the root of that and how it has shown up in your finances.
Mm.
From going to go get the extra degree, you want to get this extra job so that you don't have to be at home with your wife and your kids.
Mm. Mm.
Right. And so you're driving an extra 60 minutes, which means that you're limiting the time with your kids, which means that you're not home in time for family dinner, which means that you're ordering out and you're not really working out. So now you are taking cholesterol pills that you
Hmm.
can't even pronounce, right? Do you see how it's a trickle effect, how all
Yeah.
of that?
Yeah.
So that's really what the internal debt collector is. My duty, right, is to really help you transform from the inside out, really getting free of the internal debts, right? We go through these phases, the 4 phases of internal transformation. That's through the course. And then through the intensive, we go through the pillars of the healing, right? Where you
Mm.
got to heal first. You
Yeah.
got to heal, getting down to, and let me just say that I am not a therapist. I am not giving you, I'm just giving you the tools and resources that I've learned, which I will be going back to go get my LPC, which is licensed professional counselor. But until I'm certified, please seek help
Yeah. My
from a
licensed profession.
mental health professional. Okay, let me give that disclaimer. But that's really what I do. I really help us to take a look at the holistic approach of how to get free from the limiting beliefs, the
Mm-hmm.
mindsets, right? The self-worth, the self-doubt, like you talk about, getting to the core root of all of those things that have affected your finances. That perfection, is there a certain image you got to have? So
Yeah.
you go and you buy all of these things so it can look like you got it together,
Come
but deep
on.
down inside, child, you are a hot mess. And one of the things that I had to really come to grips in terms with is I don't want to be a public success and a private failure.
Come on. Come on.
So, and I had this reality check recently when it came to my niece, and I was like, you know what? Some of you are repeating some of the cycles that happened to you. So
Mm.
I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
again, it starts with that self-awareness. So it's a lot of intense work. If you want to do the work, if you want to show up and do the work, then hey, I'd love to assist you on your journey to help you get free financially, but most importantly, get free in your mind, body, and soul, because that's true debt freedom.
Yes, that is, girl. You had me over here, like, you know what, like pulling it all together, thinking about where I was before I was. Because listen, there's very few people who have not been in debt. Okay, so
Right.
I definitely have been in debt in multiple ways of my life. Okay, but when you break it down like that and you realize how it's all connected, um. Like if for me, I could very much say, oh, I wasn't necessarily taught finances as a kid. Okay, but at what point in time did it become your responsibility to learn how to manage your own finances? And also, what is your, like you said, what is your relationship with money? How do you view money? And it's that is a journey in itself. Like I was on your podcast and I've shared as well that like my husband was really the driving force behind me having a different relationship with money, because he was where I wanted to be, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
now we both can have larger dreams and greater goals of certain things, because I had to I had to get to where he was, right? I
Yeah.
always laugh and I say, I think I don't know if necessarily we were dating, but we were just kind of talking. And I remember him asking me what my credit score was. And I was like, "What?" And so I was just like, "Oh, well, I'm not really sure." And he was like, "Well, mine is ate something and he was like, you gonna have to, if you want to deal with me, you gotta get your credit score up. I was like, well, all right then, but for me, it was like
Yeah.
funny, but then it was just kind of like, well, I mean, he does have, like, I can tell that he was very much so financially responsible. And I was just
Mhm.
like, if I wanted to move forward in this relationship, or in any relationship for that matter, even if it wasn't him, it was very much so like, okay, how am I showing up? What am I doing? Like you talk about the, looking, what did you say? You said public success, private
Private
failure.
failure.
Right. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So it was just like, okay, yeah, all right. I had this job. I was a leader, I'm doing these things, but I'm over here struggling. I got 28 cents to my name, right? You over here paying, insufficient funds fee. You literally living paycheck to paycheck, counting out the money. Like, am I going to have enough to feed my son this week, And
Yeah.
once just having those conversations and kind of watching him, and then I started listening to Dave Ramsey. So, definitely, even if you just listen to his podcast, there's things that you can kind of get from that if you're not ready to do financial university. We did that, Financial Peace University as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
But it definitely was like, okay, Felicia, what are you going to do? Had nothing to do with him, had nothing to do with anybody else. It was like, what are you going to do to be different? Because also at that time, I had a kid. How do I want to show up for my son? How do I want my son to be able to take care of his finances? When you have somebody else connected to you, it doesn't matter what it is,
Yeah.
whether it's in your purpose, whether it's in your finances, whether it's in whatever the case may be. When someone is connected to you, it's your responsibility to do what it needs to be done so that they can learn from that and or reap the benefits or whatever have you. And so no, I think this is a great thing that you're doing. I think that it's a conversation that needs to be had for so many people, because we all have big dreams, right? And we
Yeah.
all have things that we want to do. And God wants us to be rich in all the things, right? He wants us
Right.
to have everything. But if you are holding you back, he's not going to give it to you. If you are not being a good steward over your money and you're not financially responsible and you do not have a healthy relationship, he's not going to continue to bless you. Like,
Right.
it just not in the way that he's going to provide, he's going to be there for you, but not in the way that he could be, because you have to do the work.
You have to do the work.
And so, thank you so much. Like, this is, I'm glad we finally got to be able to get this done, because
Right.
I was nervous. I was like, yo, I don't know if we're not gonna bypass this. We really are not gonna bypass this.
Because let me tell y'all, Felicia and I will get on Zoom and we'll talk for 3 hours and didn't
Listen,
accomplish not one
right now,
thing.
one thing. Well, no,
We did.
we get peace, right? And I'd be like, oh, I'm so glad I talked to you. And she says the same thing. And so this time, now we got to talk to y'all. Okay.
Right.
So, Ramesha, how can people connect with you?
If you would like to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram as well as Facebook at I am.Ramesha Nicole. That is I am.Ramesha. It's spelled RAM as in Michael, ESHA Nicole, regular way that you spell it. That's both on Instagram as well as Facebook. And you can also find me on my website at www.rameshanicole.com. And then you can find the Ramesha Nicole Show, which is my new podcast, transformed from Real Talk with Ramesha Nicole, over on Apple and Spotify.
Yay. Well, y'all, all of that is going to be in the show notes as usual. So you all can get all the information and get connected with Ramesha. Again, Ramesha, thank you so much for doing this and being on the show. And I just know that I'm very clear that what you're doing is definitely going to change some lives. And so whoever gets connected to you is going to be so blessed.
Thank you, sis. Likewise.
Thank
Likewise. I
you.
have been blessed by being connected to you. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We end every episode with the serenity prayer, and it goes as follows. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. All right, y'all, that's all for this week. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to share, subscribe, rate, and review. Remember to head over to Facebook and Instagram and follow me at Slaying Self-Doubt. Oh, wait, don't forget, go to my YouTube channel and watch this episode, and remember to press the subscribe button. Until next week, see ya.